Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Planning Board. It's 6 o'clock on 5/7/2020. We are meeting virtually for the second time that we've met. We've got a newly constituted Planning Board this evening, so I'll be making some brief introductions, and they can also introduce themselves too in a moment as soon as I go through the agenda. I do, because we're meeting virtually, need to read in a quick statement. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order, suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, as well as Mayor Curtatoni's declaration of emergency, dated March 15th, 2020. This meeting of the Planning Board will be conducted via remote participation. We'll have an audio recording available upon request as soon as possible after the meeting. So I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Mike Capuano. I'm the chair of the Planning Board. With me tonight is Amelia Aboff, and we've got some new members that I'm going to introduce briefly. Jahan Habib, Rob Buchanan, and Sam Denning. So if you go to just say hello real quickly to everybody watching.
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Jahan Habib. I'm a resident of Ward 5. I work at MIT as a global accounting and financial operations manager. Very excited to be here. Looking forward to serving the Somerville community. Thank you very much.
I'll go next. Hi, my name is Rob Buchanan. I have been a resident of Somerville for about 10 years. And have been pretty active in sort of local neighborhood advocacy and efforts around planning and zoning. I'm actually a healthcare consultant for my day job, and I'm honored to be participating on the Planning Board. Thank you.
And I'm Sam Denning. I live in Ward 1 over in East Somerville. I'm an attorney who focuses mostly on local government and related public sector law, and yeah, glad to be here.
Thank you all. I'm going to go through the agenda quickly so folks know what we're going to get into. We have no approval of minutes. We have no rescheduled or withdrawn public hearings, and we have two public hearings that will be opened and heard tonight. The first is 378 Highland Avenue, and the next is 74 Middlesex Avenue. I'm going to ask Amelia Aboff to read in the notices of public hearing for these two agenda items, please.
The Somerville Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Thursday, May 7th, 2020 at 6 p.m. pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, MGL Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, as well as Mayor Curtatoni's declaration of emergency dated March 15th, 2020. This public meeting will be conducted via remote participation. The Planning Board will consider the following pursuant to Mass General Law 40A and the Somerville Zoning Ordinance. 378 Highland Ave, Northeast Harvest Corp. proposes to establish a cannabis retail use in the MR3 district, which requires a special permit. And 74 Middlesex Ave, owner LLC proposes a master plan in the Assembly Square mixed-use district, which requires a master plan special permit for an approximately 525,000 square foot, 275 foot tall commercial building, which requires 3 special permits to exceed the maximum permitted floor area ratio, building height, and leasable floor area for a single commercial space. Development review application submittal and materials and other documentation may be viewed online at somervillema.gov/departments/ospcd/planning and zoning/reports and decisions, or in person at the Planning and Zoning Division, City Hall, 3rd floor, 93 Highland Avenue, Somerville, Massachusetts. Interested persons may provide comments to the Planning Board at the hearing or by submitting written comments by mail to Planning and Zoning Division, City Hall, 3rd floor, 93 Highland Ave, Somerville, Massachusetts, or by email to planning@somervillema.gov.
Thank you very much, Amelia. So let's get started with our meeting. Is the applicant, I'm going to go just in order now. So we have the applicant for 378 Highland Ave here to make a presentation.
Chair Capuano, this is Charlotte speaking. The attorney for the applicant, Richard DiGirolamo, is here and he is unmuted and can present whenever he chooses.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hey, Rich, we can.
Hi, okay, thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Rich DiGirolamo, 424 Broadway, Somerville, on behalf of the applicant, Northeast Select Harvest Corporation. They are a Massachusetts corporation who is seeking relief in the form of a special permit to operate a marijuana retail establishment at 378 Highland Avenue. Mr. Chairman, the property in question is located in a MR3 zoning district. It's comprised of 5 storefronts and a parking lot at the corner of Highland and Cutter, and the property is situated at the corner of Highland Ave and Cutter Ave. The building presently houses small food uses on both ends of the building, and the proposed dispensary would occupy the 3 vacant storefronts in the middle of the block of stores. The parking lot is on the southerly side of the building, and it accommodates approximately 8 to 10 vehicles. The Northeast Select Harvest was one of 17 applicants who applied for a community host agreement from the city, interviewed before the mayor's marijuana advisory committee. They are one of only 3 applicants out of 17 who were granted a community host agreement for retail use at 378 Highland Ave. Northeast Select Harvest is comprised of a number of individuals who will be presenting here this evening. Northeast Harvest is a Group A applicant based on Somerville residency of its principal. It's headed up by Robert Gregory, who is the owner and operator of Red Bones Restaurant. He has been involved with Red Bones Restaurant for 33 years. He is a resident of Chester Street, Davis Square. He is the president of Northeast Select Harvest and will be on site daily. As CEO, he is responsible for daily operations. He brings not only decades of business experience, but enjoys an excellent relationship with Davis Square residents and businesses, having run a very successful restaurant in the middle of a residential neighborhood. After Robert, you will be hearing from Jamie Crum. Jamie is the Chief Operating Officer of Northeast Select Harvest. He is a product expert. Jamie has been involved in the cannabis industry since 2013. He not only owns a growth facility in Maine, but he also operates 3 retail stores up in Maine. And he has, for the last several years, consulted extensively throughout both the US and Canada, offering best practices and product delivery to numerous cannabis retailers and growers. His responsibilities at Northeast will include dealing with suppliers and implementing his knowledge and experience in the industry to make the dispensary operate as efficiently as possible. Maria Cacciaiola is also joining us this evening. She would serve as the Chief Financial Officer of Northeast Select Harvest. Maria has spent substantially her entire career in banking. Most recently, she was the CEO of the Riverworks Credit Union in Lynn. She is quite familiar with working in a highly regulated industry, such as the cannabis industry, having worked in banking for several decades. She would be heavily involved in the dispensary, concentrating on employee training, handling cash, and take on responsibility for compliance with state mandates as dictated by the Cannabis Control Commission. Maria will introduce a cashless ATM system at the dispensary, which she will speak to shortly. Also joining us this evening is Scott Jenkins. His company, ACT Protective Services, will be in charge of security at the dispensary. He has extensive experience in cannabis security. As he consults for and does security for a number of cannabis businesses in and around the area. He will present details on the security plan for this dispensary, which is quite extensive in nature. It includes cameras, both indoor and outdoor, guards, motion detectors. He will also give details on how they will monitor this on a 24-hour basis. He will work directly with Somerville Police Department, ensuring that the dispensary operates safely. His responsibilities will also include product delivery, taking delivery to and from the dispensary, which will probably be roughly one to two times per week. Finally, you will hear from Steve Siragusa from Design Consultants. Steve is the Design Consultants was hired as the traffic engineer who has worked on traffic and parking related issues at the dispensary. DCI has prepared a traffic memorandum, which hopefully is part of your package. But they have concluded that given the location of this dispensary, it's less than a quarter of a mile from the Red Line T-stop. It's on 6 different bus routes. They have concluded that approximately 75% of the customers who frequent the dispensary will arrive in vehicles. The dispensary will be appointment only for a period of 6 months. There are 5 point of sale stations that are at the dispensary. They are going to encourage online sales as much as possible. The appointment only will be spaced roughly 15 minutes apart so that the maximum number of customers with the 5 point of sale stations would be 20 per hour. And DCI, as I indicated previously, Mr. Chairman, projects that as many as 75% of these customers will not be arriving by vehicle. So they would generate roughly 5 vehicle trips per hour to and from the dispensary. Northeast has made arrangements to rent parking off-site for their employees who choose to come by vehicle. Obviously, they're going to try and discourage vehicles from coming here as much as possible by giving their employees T-passes. They're also going to be providing discounts for online sales so that it will also discourage the number of vehicles coming here. But given that there is a parking facility on site, those customers who do choose to drive to the facility will have the benefit of the parking on site. Employees who do come by vehicle will be parked in an off-site facility, which they have already contracted for. There was a community outreach meeting, Mr. Chairman, that was held on November 12th. It was sponsored by Councilor Lance Davis. There were approximately 25 residents in attendance. The proposal was very well received. I think that there is a lot of trust in the fact that Robert Gregory, who's been a businessman in their square for several decades, will be in charge of day-to-day operations here. And as I said, he obviously enjoys a very good relationship with the neighborhood and the business owners in the area. Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I would like to ask if we can continue with our presentation. I think Mr. Robert Gregory would like to address the board with your permission, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Absolutely. Is he with you, or can we get him on his own? Okay.
No, he is not with me, but I think he is online. Is Robert online?
He should be.
Chair Capuano, I am looking at the list of attendees and I do not see anyone with Robert Gregory as their display name online.
That was my question.
Okay. Charlotte, do you know if the other members of our team are online?
A number of the other members of your team are online.
Okay.
If you would like to identify someone else that you would like me to unmute, I
Yeah,
am.
so if that's
happy to do
the
that.
case, I would ask if Jamie Crum could present to the board next.
Can I ask a logistics question?
Sure.
For the purpose of the presentation, oftentimes when you guys are before us, when we're in, in the room, you'll have display materials. If you have display materials, I presume there's an opportunity for everybody to see them electronically.
I can't hear you, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I was saying, if you guys have display materials, to the extent that you do, I presume that they will be available to be seen on this virtual meeting.
I don't know that I have display materials. I think you probably have plans as part of
Yes.
your package that were prepared by our architect. My guess is that you have the traffic memorandum. I think there was okay, I'm just getting I don't know of any other display materials that we would presented. I do think that I did just get a message from Rob Gregory that he is now on. Charlotte, do you show that at all?
This is Charlotte speaking. I still do not see Robert Gregory.
He says he might be under another name.
Oh,
What other name would that be?
that's interesting. I don't know. Our team consists of the names, I assume we have Jamie Crum,
Yep.
Maria Cacciaiola, Scott Jenkins, and Steve Saragusa on. I don't know who else. I don't know, perhaps under his wife's name. I don't.
He has just logged on.
Okay, great. Excellent.
I will unmute him.
Excellent. Thank you, Charlotte. How come I can only see
Hello, Mr. Gregory.
Push the raise your hand. What's that?
Right there.
I don't have to do that.
No. He's telling Gregory to do that.
Robert Gregory, you are unmuted if you would like to address the board. We're going over your case.
Mr. Gregory, you are live. If you'd like to present to us.
I take it.
Rich, do we want to move to someone else first?
Sure. Is Jamie Crum on the line? Is he?
I am.
Okay, Jamie, could you address the board, please? Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and the rest of the board. Thank you guys for taking the time to hear our presentation today. As Rich said here, I've been involved in this industry for a while now. I've had the benefit up here in Maine of being involved in a lot of different levels of this industry, from the manufacturing, cultivation, retail, kind of every level of the piece. So, I own companies in extraction. I own a cultivation company as well as edible company and retail coming up here soon. So I was brought into the group, and I know Rob through a couple of friends, and we had spoken about, possibly using some of my models and some of my expertise down there in Boston and Somerville, and I was very excited about the idea to do so. At this point now, we have, put a lot of work into trying to think up. Can everybody hear me? Yep. So we put a lot of work into not only the design of the facility, flow of the facility, security. Tried to answer all the questions that have come up, from the city council and everybody else. So, that's pretty much my introduction, and I'm open to any questions that you may have.
Right now, I will reserve my questions until the end of your presentation and some questions to staff. Rich, if you want to put the next person on your team on the line. Is Rich unmuted?
Hi, okay, I'm sorry.
Okay.
With your permission, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask Maria Cacciaiola to address the board.
Yes, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for hearing our case. As Richie said, my name is Maria Cacciola. What I bring to the group is 30 years of banking experience. The last 14 years, the CEO of RiverWorks Credit Union. And as the CEO, one of the most important things for me was the safety and the well-being of our employees and our customers. And I've done at the credit union just about everything. My expertise are both in the operation and the financial side of the business. I don't know much about the cannabis business, but I know one thing. I know about regulations, I know about compliance, and I know about how to run a clean organization. I worked with regulators, both state and federal, for over 30 years, and I know how regulated this industry is, and I would like to run this business not different than I ran the banking business. One of the things is that has come up over the different meetings is about the cash. How much cash will we keep on site? What will we do? How do we transport it? So what we actually have researched and found a solution for is a cashless ATM, which Rich spoke a little bit about. We want to eliminate the cash on site as much as possible in the transport of cash. So we found a solution. It's a solution that interfaces with our point of sale systems. And I think it would be a great thing not to have an ATM on site and cash on site. I will help on the operation with Jamie, the employees trainings. I don't know what else I can say about that. And I'll answer any questions you have.
Thank you. By the way, if any members of the board have questions of presenters as presenting, you guys can go ahead and ask. I tend to reserve my questions until the end of the presentation, but if you have them, ask them. Rich, do you have anyone else who'd like to present?
Yes, hopefully Scott Jenkins from ACT Protective Services is on. He's there in charge of security at the dispensary. So Scott, if you would address the board.
Mr. Chair and board, this is Rebecca Cooper. I am unmuting Scott right now. Scott, go ahead and present.
Good evening. Thank you for hearing our case. My name is Scott Jenkins. I own ACT Protective Services. We've been working in the mass medical and recreational marijuana industry for the last 3 years in several different areas in Boston, Greater Boston, and on the Cape, as well as grow facilities.
computer.
Handled all aspects of security, whether it be site security,
I think it's the same.
control, deposits, transport of product, how to receive product. We've done all aspects of it and continue to do all aspects of it. We're a preferred vendor for, you guys still with me? Hello? Okay. We're a preferred vendor for Century Bank, so any money that is going to be moved, we'll be handling that. Any change that needs to be brought back in, we'll be handling that as well. At this time, would you like me to go over kind of a scope of work as I have it laid out?
Yes, please.
Okay, so basically to start with, we would have, from an electronic standpoint, we have 4 exterior cameras that are going to show all sides of the building. So all entry sides of the building, I should say. Being careful not to make sure none of them point at any of the private residences that are alongside us. Interior, we have 16 cameras. 9 are on the sales floor in that first floor area. There are 7 down below in the cellar, in the storage area. Panic buttons, glass break sensors, even vibration sensors in the walls. Pretty extensive from an electronics security standpoint. This will be monitored 24 hours a day. Not only during the day will I have a guard monitoring the cameras at all times, and then also keeping track of the sales floor through that. But at night when we're not there, there will be eyes on the cameras, making sure if there's an issue, we can get police involved if needed, or fire, or whatever it might be, to minimize any negative effect on the building, the business, or the neighborhood. From the physical standpoint, security standpoint, we'll be starting with 3 guards. 1 will be posted at the door checking IDs. 1 will be posted, excuse me, in the security room, watching cameras, and 1 will be basically a floater, somebody who can go from parking lot to parking lot, monitor the exterior, make sure that nobody is breaking the rules. They'll talk later about the document that everybody will sign saying that they'll follow certain rules, and if they break them, they will potentially lose their ability to get service from this location. We will be, for example, somebody breaks a package open and walks down the street. We're going to try and intercept that so it doesn't have twofold effects, negative on the business and negative on the neighborhood. We don't want our neighbors to think that we're going to allow that. So we want to be real proactive on that. That's what we have done everywhere else we go. And we really have had very little problem. It's really uncommon for somebody to crack a package open and do something that they shouldn't be doing. All the guards are wired with 2-way radios and earbuds and speakers, remote microphones, rather, so that the gentleman that's in the security office can see something going on outside and trigger a response from the roving guard. The guards will arrive half an hour before opening. 2 guards will patrol the parking lots to make sure they're the way they should be. If there's clutter, they're going to pick it up. If there's artwork on the building, they're going to make management aware of it so they can get somebody in there to get that squared away. 1 guard will be inside reviewing cameras, talking to the overnight crew that monitored the cameras for any pass-on information, as well as discussing with the management what's going to happen that day. Are we going to have a delivery? Who's it coming from? What time will it arrive? Our deliveries will be planned to try and be there before the restaurants open, so that there'll be no interfering with their business from that standpoint. The guards during the day, as I already told you, would be 1 in the security room, 1 at the front door, 1 roving, and they will rotate positions as the day goes through. At the end of the night, 1 guard is relieved. 2 guards will stay on site. 2 guards will stay on site to walk any employees that want security to walk them to their car. We'll do that, and we will stay there until the manager locks the door. We don't want a manager leaving on their own. Not likely anything would happen, but I don't want to take any chances, so we want to make sure of that. Other than that, product deliveries, as I said, will be done to our best ability. They will be done before the restaurants open, so there will be nothing in the way. It will be everything will be done. Won't be in plain sight. When the delivery team is on its way in, they'll call my team leader on site, let him know they're approximately 20 or 30 minutes out. When they arrive, a guard from security and a guard from roving will come and provide overwatch. Generally, the product is offloaded onto rolling carts, rolls down the back alley and right into the rear door, right downstairs into the safe, into the vault. That's where it's going to be stored, and it'll be counted, and that'll be the end of it. In and out very quickly. Any questions I can answer for you at this time?
None from
Okay.
me.
Mr. Chair, this is Rebecca speaking. Again, I just want to make an announcement to you, the board, and to all of our attendees that due to some background noise challenges that we've been having, we're going to try to take a slightly more active role in muting and unmuting people just to make sure that we can ensure that the board and all attendees can hear very clearly. So what I'm going to ask everyone to do, if you want to speak, is to please use the raise hand feature. There's a small hand on the side of your panel, so if you'd like to speak, just raise your hand, and I will unmute you to do so. I see that right now I have Rob Gregory and Richard DiGirolamo. Oh, sorry, Rich. I see Rob Gregory has his hand up, so I am going to unmute you so that you can speak. Okay, you're self-muted as well.
Hello, can I be heard? Hello?
Yes,
You
we
can
can
be
hear
heard.
you.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me again?
Yes.
Okay, great. Wow. Sorry, I don't know. Just figuring out this stuff. Hello, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Thank you for hearing us tonight. My name is Rob Gregory. I think Rich covered a lot of it. I've been here in Somerville for 33 years. I opened Red Bones in 1987. I live in Somerville on Chester Street in a tight residential area. I've had a lot of experience, business neighbor relations. We've worked out all kinds of issues and problems and things that come up over the years. I think I can say that I have a good reputation with all of my neighbors, my immediate neighbors, and in the community in general. I think the only thing Rich did not tell you is that I do have two teenagers, a 15-year-old and a 17-year-old at Somerville High School. And they live with me and my wife. When we saw the opportunity to apply for a adult use recreational marijuana license, that piqued my interest. And I said, wow, I think we could do that pretty well. We've specialized in great product over the years, both in the barbecue and the beer and bourbons and that type of thing. So I said that might be right up our alley. And we took the opportunity to make the application and assembled this very professional, creative team together. And we plan to open hopefully the best little adult recreational marijuana store in Somerville and in the Northeast. That's the long and the short of it. I think I will work as the proprietor. I'm the guy that will be there every day. I'm the connection that the community has. People can call me as they do at Red Bones. People call me on my cell phone if they need me, if there's a problem. I have no problem with that, never have had a problem with that. I'd like to be involved with the community in education and working with putting together a task force, chair that task force with the other marijuana recreational stores that are opening so that we can work out problems together. And that's pretty much it.
Thank you very much, Rob.
Yeah.
Rich, do you have anybody else on your team that would like to present?
Chair, this is Rebecca again. Rich is unmuted now.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we do. We have one other presenter, and that's Steve Saragusa from Design Consultants, who is the traffic and parking engineer for this project. So I'd ask if Steve could address the board.
Go for it, Steve.
Take this off.
Okay, good evening. Can everybody hear me okay? All right.
Yes.
My name is Steve Saragusa. As Rich was saying, I work for Design Consultants. We're right in Somerville on the outskirts of Assembly Square. We've done dozens of traffic studies within Somerville. And for this site, we put together a trip generation memorandum, as you guys all have. And a big part of that is estimating the trips, basically. And we did that in two separate ways for a comparison. The first way is we took into account employee and customer and loading and service trips to the site. What was decided is that all loading and delivery trips, a lot of it for safety purposes, will be random, and also decided to be outside of the peak hours of traffic in order to limit the impact there. And then for employee and customer trips, as was mentioned, there are going to be appointments only 15-minute intervals, and there are only 5 point of sale stations. So for customer trips, there will be a maximum of 20 trips per hour. 15-minute intervals, 5 point of sale stations, 20 trips. Given the location, as Rich had mentioned earlier, and you guys are well aware of it, it is right on the outskirts of Davis Square that has multiple bus routes, bicycle connections, pedestrian facilities, and the Red Line is right there as well. So we feel that given that location, that a majority of those trips are going to be coming from Davis Square itself. And be walking, biking, or things of that nature. So with that reduction in trips, that brings us down from 20 per hour to 5 per hour. And given that they will be exiting and entering, so 10 vehicle trips to or from the site per hour. And given that Highland Ave has approximately 10 to 11,000 vehicles a day on it, that is such a low percentage of trips that this establishment will be generating. For a comparison, what we did is we looked at the ITE Trip Generation Manual. The ITE is the Institute of Transportation Engineers. And they came out with a new trip gen manual in 2017 that actually does include a marijuana establishment as one of their land uses. A bulk of their data is from Colorado and California, which was at the time, recreational sale was legal out there. And with those estimates, it is very similar to the estimates that we generated using those employee and customer trips. And they came up with that calculates to about 8 vehicle trips per hour. That doesn't even take into account appointment only. Those are based on any site that they studied, and not having appointments or anything like that. So this site will be much more structured in the number of customers that are allowed to or from the site in any given hour. As I had mentioned, that it is right near a transit station. And another thing that the site will be doing is they will be offering a discount for any customer that will be using a non-vehicular mode of transportation. So to really encourage people to not drive to the site and give them extra incentives. As Rich had mentioned, there will be off-site parking for employees. So any customer that does decide to drive to the site, there will be ample amount of parking there for them. And as you'll see in the traffic report as well, for the transportation demand management measures, the the site will provide subsidized transit passes to all employees. They will do their best to hire local residents, so it really limits the need to drive to the site. They'll have the ability to walk or ride a bicycle or take the bus to work, and really just provide as much information as possible on their website, so that when somebody visits the website, they see all of these transportation options for biking facilities and the bus routes and maps and schedules and things like that, to really kind of make sure that even if this was not appointment only, a majority of these trips would be by non-vehicular modes. I'm more than happy to answer any questions that anybody has, and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Saragusa. Rich, do you have anybody else on your team that's going to present after this? Or are we going to get to questions from the board?
That actually concludes our presentation, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. Before I open it up for testimony by folks in the attendee list here, I want to do two things. One, I just want to let everybody know that the planning board knows, but for folks who are listening in and viewing in, we also got some written testimony via email. So for anybody that has not, I will consider leaving it open for additional written testimony if folks think that that's appropriate. We already got some in, but I'd like to open it up to members of the planning board who have questions of staff or of the applicant before I let folks speak.
I would appreciate if the applicant team could address on both the security, traffic, and I guess pedestrian circulation topics what will happen after the first 6 months. So a number of references were made to this appointment only system being a major demand management tool for those resources. And I believe per the staff report, and please correct me if this is different now, that was a requirement for only the first 6 months of operations. So I'd appreciate some more comfort about what will happen after that time.
So we've already gone before the licensing commission, and they have placed that condition upon our license. We will have to go back and present to them after 6 months and after 1 year, I believe the condition provides, and we have to satisfy them that we are operating safely, that we're not generating traffic. But obviously, as with every other dispensary that they've licensed, they reserve the right to lift that restriction, in which case we will continue, if that condition is lifted, we will continue to try and therefore the public would be allowed to come to the site. We will try to discourage as much traffic coming to the site as possible through some of the issues, through some of the items that were discussed previously by primarily Steve, that is allowing discounts for online sales, encouraging use of public transportation, promoting deliveries in the morning prior to the time that the restaurants open, the small restaurants on site open, so that there's no intersection of delivery trucks with, perhaps traffic coming to and from the food uses. But we will do whatever we can to try to promote as much pedestrian activity to and from the site as possible. Promoting, we feel like online is going to be a very large part of this business. So obviously that would be part of the mix as well.
Thank you. And is there a maximum capacity for customers coming into the store versus queuing outside? And is there a plan for the management of, I've seen at other dispensaries in the area, I think people lining up outside and that being a substantial presence on the sidewalk. Is that something we anticipate here?
Scott, could you address that issue of queuing and queuing on the sidewalk?
Sure. What we've discussed at this point is if, considering people are going to be coming by appointment only, there should really be no need for people to be on the sidewalk, except if they have to wait a minute or two for the next person to go through. If people show up and they're early, we're going to tell them they can't stay. With regard to the COVID situation, we could put along the storefront 3 or 4 people spaced 6 feet apart and up against the building so they wouldn't be inhibiting traffic on the sidewalk. That wouldn't be a problem. I don't see that happening, honestly, because by appointment, I've never dealt with by appointment. I've dealt with open the door, here they come. And even in that environment, we don't have that much of a problem. So I don't anticipate it here. That said, if it does, we will have the room to have 3 or 4 people against the wall, against our building, between our entrance and exit, spaced 6 feet away, that won't be in the way of traffic, foot traffic. And then anyone else will be turned away, because you can't just show up half an hour early for an appointment and think you're going to stand in line. That's not going to happen. No, they're not going to be loitering around. And the bigger part of it is, again, that piece of paper they're going to sign, anything they do that negatively impacts the business, the neighborhood, impacts their ability to use the facility. So that's a pretty good policing tool. Most people, once they find a place they like, and the people are, they like the people, they like the environment, and they like the product, they don't want to do anything to mess that up. So that's a pretty good thing hanging over their head from that standpoint. I hope that answered it. Okay.
If I could just add, I don't know if I'm unmuted.
You are, Rich. You can speak.
Okay, thank you. If I could just add to that, when the first time that a customer comes to this dispensary, they will be required to sign a customer pledge. The pledge will have a number of rules and regulations. They cannot stand out on the sidewalk. They can't litter in the parking lot. They can't create a disturbance, obviously. They can't, use product, on the street. If they violate that customer pledge, then we will terminate them as a customer. So it's very important. And I think maybe Jamie is familiar with best practices that are utilized throughout the industry, and he might be able to speak to that issue of how this is regulated, this, best practices and requiring customers to sign a pledge when they first come to the dispensary.
Now, Rich, that's obviously a voluntary action by your client. That's not required in the law. That's them trying to be good neighbors voluntarily. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes.
Mr. Chair, Jamie has raised his hand to be recognized. Would you like to recognize him to speak?
Who was that?
Jamie Crum.
Yes, of course.
All right. Jamie, I'm unmuting you now. You're self-muted.
Okay, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I just wanted to touch back on a couple of these things that we just talked about. One of them was the, how we're going to handle appointments and, what's going to happen after the 6 months. And a good point was brought up, and that is that a lot of people, share the same concerns, and that is they've driven by dispensaries existing in the state at this point that, will have long lines outside of the buildings. Through this period of this 6 month period, it's going to be a lot of us gathering data on, finding out, how busy we are. Obviously, we're going to be under an appointment basis only to start, but we'll certainly be gathering data on what are our busier times of the day, so on and so forth. It's also important to remember that up until now, there's been a limited amount of these retail dispensaries open. So we're also going to be trying to see, how the crowds kind of spread out once there's a lot more of these stores open, 6 months, a year, 2 years from now. I think that you'll see that the lines at a lot of these places will start to simmer down once there's more options. So that's, just touching back on that. Getting back into the customer pledge. Really, the point of the customer pledge is that it's our job as staff of this retail store, this dispensary, to know the laws, to know what we can and can't do, But I've found that there's a lot of people that don't know the laws. You know, I talk to a lot of people that go to a store and they'll purchase some product and they don't understand that they're not supposed to cross, you know, state lines with them. Make sure that they're stored correctly so that they're not available for children or pets or anybody that shouldn't be using that product. So the customer pledge is really so that we can not only you know, educate the customer so that they understand these things that they may not know. They have not read the laws. They know if they're over 21, they can go in and buy it, but that's really not where it stops. Don't drive under the influence of a lot of these products. So that's our opportunity to kind of educate the customer. And by having them sign this pledge, they're acknowledging that they understand these rules. So therefore, if we do have a problem where, for instance, someone was to buy a product and then walk 100 feet out the store and think that it's okay to use that product, they've signed that pledge and they've acknowledged that they read those rules and they understand that that's not okay. And it's not a situation where they could say, well, I didn't know that wasn't okay. So that's a little bit more background on, you know, the reasoning that we see benefits in a customer pledge.
And that's something that would then be policed by security, is that correct?
So the security, you know, again, our security is unmanned, I'm sorry, they do not carry a firearm. So the job of our security is to monitor our store and to not only monitor our store, but monitor the environment around us. Again, we want to make sure that we're not, you know, we don't want to have a bad social impact on the community. I think that's something that everybody thinks is very important. So it'll be a job of the security to not only monitor our facility and monitor what's going on around us, but if there is a problem, you know, if it's something as little as picking up trash or something like that, telling somebody that they can't loiter on the premises, our security will make that recommendation. But if they're dealing with a customer that's unruly, not listening, then that will be forwarded to the local authorities.
Mr. Chair, I had a question. One question I had was I was looking over this is Rob Buchanan. I was looking over the neighborhood meeting notes, and I believe I saw that the hours of operation in those notes were presented as 9 a.m. to 8 p.m., whereas in the planning board staff memo, it says 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. Monday through Thursday. I was wondering if someone could clarify for me what the hours of operation are intended to be Monday through Thursday.
I think, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I believe our hours of operation are intended to be 10 to 8 Monday through Thursday. Friday and Saturday, 10 to 10, Sunday, 12 to 5. Rob, is that your understanding as well?
Yeah, those are the hours that I saw in the neighborhood meeting, and so I guess I would maybe ask that the staff memo be updated to reflect those hours, if that is in fact the plan.
Thank you, Mr. Buchanan. This is Charlotte's project, and unfortunately she had to leave us, but I will make a note that we will update those hours. I also briefly saw Rob Gregory raise his hand to speak. Rob, if you'd like to speak, I'm going to unmute you now. And now you're only self-muted. There you go.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate, those are the hours, the ones that we just spoke of, Rob.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep, thank you.
And I had a couple of questions, Mr. Chair. I don't know what order you want to go in or how you want to proceed.
Well, so Rob, I've got a question. Are these questions that you'd like to ask now, or do you want to wait until we've gotten some testimony in? Because I've got one or two that I'd like to ask after we get some testimony.
Yeah, I'm happy to wait.
Okay. Does anybody from staff have anything to add before I open it up for testimony? Okay. For the purpose of taking public testimony virtually, what we've been doing is if you want to speak, if you want to provide testimony, please use the little raise hand button next to your name, and I will call you out. And if you could give your name and address for the audio and visual record, you can provide testimony. So I don't see anybody yet who has raised their hand. So if you want to provide testimony on this application, please click the raise hand button, and we'll call you and let you be heard. So I'll give you a minute to do that. Okay. At this time, I'm going to open up the hearing for members of the public that want to provide verbal testimony. I'm scrolling through.
Mr. Chair, this is Rebecca speaking. I'm not seeing anybody raising their hand.
Okay. I do not either. I'm going to leave the record open for folks that want to click the raise hand button for another few seconds, and then I will close that portion of the public hearing. So raise your hand if you would like to speak. One more scroll through the list of attendees. I do not see any hands raised for anyone that wants to provide oral testimony. So I'm going to close that portion of the public hearing, and I'm going to open it back up to members of the planning board that have questions to the applicant or questions to staff. So Rob, I know you said you had a few other questions that you had, so add it. You're muted.
Thank you. One of the other questions I had for the applicant was around the signage. Can you describe for me whether the signage is lighted in any way? I can't tell from the plan. And you may be muted, so.
I have him muted. Yeah, he's self-muted.
Bruce is unmuted.
I am not aware of the answer to that question. I have not actually seen the signage plan, so I'm not aware. My belief is it's not internally lit. So, but perhaps there's somebody else on the team who's more familiar with that question than I am. I do not believe that it is internally lit.
Mr. Chair, I'm noticing, this is Rebecca speaking, my apologies. I'm noticing that Rob is raising his hand to speak. I will unmute him in just a moment, and I will just make a note that—
This is Jamie Crum.
Thank you. That internally lighted signs would not be permitted by code, and the code is very specific about signage regulations. So that is something that we can definitely take note of and condition as needed. I am going to unmute Rob Gregory first, and then I will unmute Jamie Crum to speak. And Rob, you are now ready to go.
Right. No, we would, follow all the code and the requirements for signage, and we don't have any intention of trying to bring, a lot of attention to the space in that way. So that would not be something that we would intend on doing.
Another question I had, this is Rob.
Did Jamie need to speak on that as well?
Yeah, sorry guys. Pretty much just mirroring what Rob said, which is that, we intend to have a sign that complies with, the local ordinances and, that the city is comfortable with.
Thank you.
Yeah, I guess the part of the reason why I was asking was reflecting on some of the feedback we've heard around some of the other dispensaries in the city. that I've heard anyway, at least from folks, is that kind of the opaque film on the windows, which I know is required by law, sort of invites a feeling like it's sort of an off-putting kind of feel to the street life and the street character. So that was part of the reason why I was asking, was trying to understand kind of the philosophy around whether the sign was lit or not lit, whether, you know, we were trying to call this out as the obvious location for this establishment versus for some reason not trying to call it out. I don't know that I have a strong opinion either way, but I guess I was trying to understand what the philosophy was around, you know, kind of the lighting and I guess the look and the approachability of the reception area. So,
Rob, if I may, my memory is that this building has some exterior light fixtures located on the columns. So while the sign might not be lit, I do think there is exterior building lighting that might in some ways address your concern.
I see that on the drawing. Good point.
Mr. Chair, before we move on, I'd like to take note that Rob Gregory has raised his hand again, and I'm going to unmute him so that he can speak.
Yeah, hi. I agree. I mean, it's a good idea if we make it as normal as possible, and not, you know, covered up to look like some seedy massage parlor or something like that. That wouldn't be our intent at all. So I think it should just be, you know, a comfortable, normal look that would feel good in that storefront and in that space. That's what I would hope that we could come up with.
I have no further questions.
I have one, and it's more of staff than of the applicant. I think, and I could be mistaken, so two things. One, when we, as a planning board and the city as a whole, have reviewed zoning and placement for cannabis establishments, both medicinal and recreational, this board at the time being constituted was very much in support of having facilities located in the business districts, so they weren't cast off to the side. And this is precisely what I foresaw a place of this nature would be located in. Isn't there another cannabis store in Davis? Am I wrong?
Mr. Chairman, this is Sarah Lewis, Planning Director. There is another cannabis facility in Davis Square on Elm Street. However, that is a medical only facility. So this one would be on Highland Avenue and recreational adult use only.
That's certainly fine. I was just curious because I wasn't sure what the other facility was, if it was, and how, if any, I've not heard of any issues that were attendant to the location and operation of that facility. So based on all of the presentation that I heard tonight from the applicant's team, I can't imagine that this facility would be any different. So I just wanted to clarify that because I thought I knew that, but I guess I was a little bit mistaken. So is there any other discussion from members of the planning board, questions of staff, comments from staff? There are a number of, I'm going to go to the staff report on this, which is in a different slide for me. Different window, I guess, right? There are some conditions that the staff has recommended in the event the planning board votes to approve this application tonight. I'm wondering and hoping if the staff can just briefly go over the conditions for folks that don't have the staff report in front of them on the computer.
Mr. Chair, this is Sarah Lewis again. If you can give me a few minutes to
Yeah,
find
sure.
said staff report, I probably can do that for you.
It's not very cumbersome, but I do think it's beneficial for the public to be able to know what the conditions are that staff has recommended that will be taken into account.
All right, sorry for that delay. As Ms. Cooper had observed, this is a sort of unfortunately Charlotte, whose case this has been, is obligated to be in two places at once this evening. So the one thing that I will say is the discussion about opening times, everything will be absolutely coordinated with the licensing commission's decision. So anything that is commensurate to the license, we will make sure that that is coordinated as a condition of their special permit approval. There are obviously a lot of state requirements associated with this, this type of business. Most of the other conditions that are included are the idea of coordinating the construction and the usual ISD planning, zoning planners review to make sure there is coordination throughout the process when building permit is applied for and when certificate of occupancy is applied for. So these are not, you've probably seen these on multiple other cases previously. This is the first one that sort of has the reference to a host community agreement, but the other adult use facilities will have the same.
This is Rebecca speaking. I just wanted to take a moment to note that through the magic of the internet, Charlotte has been able to rejoin us. And so if you have more specific questions on the staff reports, you can address them if you'd like. All right, seeing none, then I guess we can just move on with the discussion.
We can. Do members of the board want to discuss this any further than we already have with the applicant and with staff? No? Okay, that being the case, the chair moves to accept the staff recommendation as conditioned, seconded by Sam, because we are moving virtually here. The practice of this board has been to take a roll call vote. So the chair votes aye.
Amelia votes aye.
Jahan Habib votes aye.
Rob Buchanan votes aye.
Muted.
Excuse me. Yep. Sam votes aye. Thank you.
It is unanimous to the applicant. Thank you and good luck. We are now going to move on to the next item on our agenda. Let me move back to the agenda. It's 74 Middlesex Ave, I'm pretty certain. Is that right?
That is correct. Give us just a moment while we get set up. I'm going to work with the applicant to make sure that they're able to present.
Great.
All right.
Are we set?
I am making Ryan Sullivan a presenter. I think there's a little shifting around that's going to happen. And Ryan, I think that you are unmuted. Can you tell me who else on your team I should unmute at this time?
Hey, good evening, Rebecca. Thank you. And I believe you can see my screen. Yes, please unmute Victor and Jason Volan.
Okay, Jason is unmuted, but he's self-muted. And Victor is now unmuted.
Thank you. Chairman and board, thank you very much for your time this evening. We have been undertaking this project for some time now, and our enthusiasm continues to grow every single day. We think it's a very special project, and we appreciate your time getting to know the project, and also appreciate everybody from the public on the line right now that is joining in the call. Thank you. To get started, I'd just like to introduce the project a little bit here. 74 Middlesex Edge Assembly Square is the commercial office lab building that we'll be talking about today. The speakers for today are going to be myself, Ryan Sullivan, the development director from Edge, Victor Fiscaitis, he's a senior principal and architect from Sasaki, and Jason Volan, vice president of AECOM. Just to give you a little bit of background about Edge, also known as OVG, Edge is a family-owned real estate company out of Amsterdam. It's over a 20-year-old company owned by Koen Van Oostrum. Edge is known for building very sustainable, tech-driven buildings. In 2014, we built The Edge, which you can see in the bottom left corner there, which was the most technological forward, sustainable building built in the world at its time. And from that point in time, we've tried to take those building attributes and apply that to all of our buildings in any market that we're building in. So yeah, again, we're a Dutch-based company. We have about 100 people in Amsterdam. We have about 50 people in Germany, and we have a nice lean team here in the United States, and we're focused on the US Northeast market, specifically DC up to Boston, and our major focus is on Boston right now between this project and one other one. Just to give you a few portfolio highlights here, the Unilever headquarters was our first project in the US. This was the new headquarters in New Jersey, about 325,000 square feet. It was a LEED Platinum building, the 2019 LEED Project of the Year, and it's about to receive a WELL Platinum rating as well. The tenant, Unilever, is very happy with the building. They showcase it throughout their portfolio and to all of their different clients and relationships. Bottom left is 401 Congress Street. This is our other active project in the Boston market currently. It's going to be a beautiful Class A office building in the Seaport neighborhood. If you go to the bottom right corner, Edge East Side, this is in Berlin, Germany. This is going to be a tremendously beautiful building. The architect is BIG, and a large American tech tenant, which you'd be familiar with the name, will be the main tenant in this building. If you go to the top row, the Edge is the building that I brought up in the beginning. This is the one what we rebranded OVG to Edge about. And this building essentially incorporates all the ethos that we stand for. And the Edge Olympic building is our current headquarters in Amsterdam. This is a BREEAM Excellent building, which is equivalent to LEED Platinum, WELL Platinum building, and just an all-around great atmosphere to work in. So just to give you a little bit about our approach, we have 4 basic principles. We try to instill these principles in every single decision that we make from day one through the whole entire design process and through the construction process. Those 4 pillars are well-being, sustainability, innovative design, and all driven by technology. To give you a little insight about the project team, we like to say we have international expertise with local experience and inclusion. At the partnership level, it's Edge, our local partner, BGI, Boston Global Investors, Bastion Companies, and Chems Development Corp. At the consultant team, project team level, we have Sasaki, who is the design architect and landscaping architect, AECOM, who's the architect of record, the MEPF engineer, our superstructure engineer, and our optimization consultant. The VHB is our local entitlement consultant and civil engineer, and Haley and Aldrich is our geotechnical and environmental engineer. I think it's a really great team. I think we really have ourselves covered when it comes to the know-how of the local market in that respect. So what we're here to do with this building and with this project is to deliver Somerville its best building in town. And The way we want to do that is to highlight the core values that we want to incorporate with this project. Back to also our principles. Sustainability, we want to push the boundaries. Wellness, we want to create a healthy building. High performance through technology, essentially create a computer with a roof on it. Innovative design, essentially cater to the user in all of our thoughts and discussions. And diversity and inclusion, we want to create WMBE, LBE, which is local business entities, and youth initiatives throughout the project lifecycle and into operations. So it comes down to how do we communicate these values to our project team. So what we do in the beginning internally is we create a design brief. This design brief essentially communicates our ethos, the core principles that we believe in, and also ties in a holistic point of view that considers leasability, construction cost, location, the community, as well as our 4 core principles. So just to give you a few examples, sustainability, we try to optimize the building orientation to minimize the heat gain and loss. For well-being, we try to provide access to high quality green space. Technology, we enhance the operations through technology. When it comes to uses here, we're specifically focused on office and life science use. And when it comes to design, we like to look beyond the site. It's not just about the building, it's about the surrounding neighborhood. How can we help contribute to the value of the neighborhood that we're in? So we go from a brief, and now I just want to bring you to the design proposal that we submitted to the city of Somerville in our submission. But before we get there, I think it's also important, we submitted this, back in the first quarter of this year. A lot's happened since then. The market is pretty dynamic right now, right? And we're continually evaluating that and the changes of that every single day. But the one thing that I could say is consistent is the product that we're bringing to the market here with this building. All the things that we stand for have an even more impactful and meaningful purpose today than they did 3 months ago. Sustainability, just to give you some highlights here, we're going to meet the sustainability requirements set forth in Summer Vision. We're going to be LEED Platinum capable. We're going to have on-site PV installations, whether it's PV on the roof, possibly even on the facade, the south facade to be specific. And we're going to align with the carbon neutral goals set forth from Summer Vision. In regards to well-being, we're going to have over 25% open space achieved on-site. We're going to have blue bike and at-grade bike access, as well as underground garage access. We're going to facilitate 100% outdoor air for improved air quality. This means rather than recycling the air throughout the day, air comes in, air leaves the building. It's fresh air consistently throughout the day for the tenants. And importantly, we want to make sure that air quality is high. We're going to utilize high quality MERV 16 air filters. When it comes to technology, we're going to have a BMS system for MEP optimization. Our tech infrastructure is going to be flexible for future technology. So not only will we be able to incorporate the technology today, but tenants can use the technology that's new 5, 10, 15 years from now, and they'll be able to do that here. For uses, yes, one of the special permits that we are requesting is for commercial tenants over 10,000 square feet. Our average floor plate size is 27,000 square feet to give you reference. So I'm sure we'll have a number of tenants, whether it's 2 or whether it's 17 tenants over 10,000 square feet. For parking, we want to keep a great look and feel and great community welcoming experience at the ground level. So we're going to have underground parking at a lower rate than 1 unit per 1,000 square feet. So we're really working to promote public transportation and shared rides. When it comes to design, there's 2 more special permits that I list right here. One, our submission has 525,000 gross square feet, which is 14.2 FAR. The height is at 275 feet, and that's at averaging 14'6" per tenant floor. This is the amount of space you need to attract Class A life science tenants. You need this amount of space for the mechanicals above the ceiling. So that's if you're wondering where we got that height. We are achieving the 25% civic space within our project, which I think is a great accomplishment from our design team. And we will have an active retail storefront across Middlesex Avenue. So just to give you a little bit of update also throughout the process, we've been meeting with the city planning department on a bi-weekly basis since the beginning of the year, Sarah, Rebecca, and their teams. We've worked with Brad's team to have the MMP approved. We're going to join the Assembly Connect TMA after the entitlement process is complete. Regarding public space and urban forestry, we've been actively working with Luis's team here to incorporate the public values and the vision in the exterior programming. In regards to sustainability, to touch on again, we're in compliance with the requirements. And I think you'll see throughout the presentation, we have a strong commitment to align with the Summer Vision goals. I think our ethos are tied very well together there. So here, at this point, I'm gonna let Victor from Sasaki take over the presentation. Thank you, and Victor, go ahead.
Thanks, Ryan. Good evening, everybody. So Ryan's done a great job of, I think, really telling the story of the project. I'm going to try to start off here by giving some of the physical context so you can see how we've gotten to where we are at this point. Go ahead, Ryan. So let's start with site location a little bit. You know, this is a really well-positioned site right on the edge of the Assembly Square neighborhood. You can see the black dot there, right up against Route 93, but really at a crossroads, I think, of coming into that area, as well as connection to 93, connection to the Orange Line, and all of the development that has been going on to date, and the development that is likely coming down the road in the near future. And we want to take advantage of this great connectivity. It's not only about physical connectivity, keep going, Ryan, it's also about how this site is perceived, its visual connections to the site and the visual connections from the site. Because of its prime location along 93 North, it is always going to enjoy visibility of the building and visibility from the building. We can look all the way back to Boston. We can look across Assembly Square. We can look back into Cambridge. We can look to the river. We can even look to the airports. This is a very prominent site, and it's something that we want to take advantage of. And as I'll get to, it really starts to generate the shaping of the building, because we want it to be a beacon. We want it to be an icon, and we really see it as a gateway to the area. We're also very cognizant of the fact where this sits from a resiliency standpoint in terms of the different flood elevations, proximity to the Amelia Earhart Dam, and we're being really, really aware of what we do with the ground floor, as well as how we locate critical equipment in the building going forward. So if we zoom in just a little bit now, into the district, again, where this sits in relationship to the Assembly Square area right along Route 93. It's also really important to us that we are aware of what this does to the larger open space network in the area. We've got some opportunity here on the site and with adjacent parcels to really contribute to the open space network and to make this a really pedestrian and bike friendly place, as well as dealing with some traffic issues. So if you go to the next slide, Ryan, also looking at how traffic is getting to the site, vehicular, pedestrian, bicycle, as well as mass transit. We want to take advantage of all those things and actually use this as a node in that broader network and help establish, as I mentioned, really a gateway to this part of Somerville. Zooming in just a little bit farther as we look at the site. So what you see in the red trapezoid is our prime site. This is roughly, I think, about 35,000 square feet of space within the property line. The triangle, red triangle below that, the Kensington existing open space there. We'll get into that a little bit more, but it's something that we think we can actually heighten and improve for the area. And the blue dashed line is what we're seeing as the project boundary as part of that. So that sort of sets the context. I want to talk now a little bit about the approach to this. As I mentioned, one of the critical things that we see and one of the great opportunities to take advantage here is the visibility of the site and the visibility from the site. This is what you see in the green is essentially a mapping of what you could see from the 16th floor of this building if we're looking south. And you can see the visibility is incredible of just what you can see. And it's even better looking to the north. So this idea of views to and from the building are really important to us. You can keep going, Ryan. And so just a quick sense of what you see coming down 93 and coming back up North 93. This building is really right on the freeway there, and it's always going to be something that is incredibly visible. And like I said, an icon and really a gateway into the area. So what that all means, you know, we could have just said, all right, let's just take our site boundary. We're going to extrude that up as high as we're going to go. We're going to maximize the square footage on the site, and we're going to fill out everything completely. That's not the goal here. The goal is to build something that has meaning to this particular location and takes advantage of those things. So the idea of these views to and from the site, we essentially want to build a building that has some variability in the massing, is taking advantage of those views by creating essentially big windows, big doorways in the facade of the building to start to break up that mass and to relate back to Foss Park, back to Boston, to Assembly Row and the Orange Line T-stop, back to the Mystic River, and let some of those views start to generate the shape and form of the building as we go forward. And that's what you start to see here in orange, right? So this opportunity to begin to break up the facade, to break up the massing, and to really literally create these giant windows in the broader facade that relate back to these critical connections to the broader surroundings. Related to that, because of the siting of this building, there really is no back to it. We don't see this as having a front door and a back door. We really see it as a whole series of fronts. And so while the Somerville design guidelines tend to call for primary, secondary, tertiary facades, we actually see this as all being primary, but really focusing on a hierarchy of moments. So those larger openings, those larger windows into and out of the building, which you see highlighted in dark blue, become those moments of focus. The lighter blue or greenish color there, I guess, becomes the infill facade, but still of primary importance. And then we really want to focus on how this meets the ground, how this meets the street, and that we create great transparency, real clear access to the building, and as Ryan said, a very strong retail edge, particularly along Middlesex Ave. As part of that, trying to understand, we are asking for a fairly tall building here, looking at how we begin to break up those facades, that mass from the bottom to the top. So there are parts that start to relate to the scale of the pedestrian. There's the middle that becomes more of the infill, and that there is something that starts to happen at the top to finish this building off, to really give it a sense of completion. And one last thing I think about the facade development as we will go forward into the future here, those windows that I referenced, to be consistent with the mission that Ryan talked about making this a truly sustainable and resilient development, of symbolizing, I think, the life-giving potential of this and how it is generating energy, how there's activity happening within, how it is all about the well-being of the occupants. We really see those windows as starting to develop into winter gardens, that there are terraces on these facades, that we are interspersing actual green space into this building that is visible not just to the occupants, but from the outside. That goes through the entire facade, but also very importantly, I think, into the ground floor facades, into the lobby spaces, that we are establishing a connection between outdoor space and indoor space. And so the whole building feels much less like a wall than it does a window. And so to finish up with that, I think Ryan already did a great job of touching on achieving the 25% open space, achieving the 25% civic space through the decommissioning of the Kensington Ave Road and integrating that into the public realm of the project. But really seeing this outdoor ground plane as a continuation into the large lobby and to the retail facades that are happening along Middlesex Ave. So I think that sets the stage for kind of how we are approaching the massing of the building. Equally important, as Ryan said, is how this building is going to perform. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jason.
Thanks, Victor. We work very closely with Victor as a really integrated team to develop the strategy so that the orientation and massing in that story works alongside the performance, and that our optimization and sustainability strategies are really baked in rather than applied on or after. And we have an approach to that where we look at the challenge, which is the challenge for all buildings, and particularly high performance buildings, which are trying to balance climate, human comfort, and the program, to the goals on the right, which are really from Somerville, the net zero energy capable, LEED platinum capable, and carbon neutral capable. And what's terrific about that is they also align with EDGE's vision. So EDGE had that vision coming in, it aligned with your goals. And so all we have to do is come together and look at the solutions. And we have a range of tools in our tool chest that we are deploying to help us get there. And I'll talk about some of those as we move forward. Next slide. So driving towards this idea of carbon neutral capable and net zero energy capable, we look at a baseline EUI, which is energy use intensity. An average baseline might be an EUI of 79, meaning kBTUs per square foot. With each step that we add a series of components to the building. For example, Victor's already talked about the optimized massing and orientation. We are working through enhanced envelope and materials, and I'm going to talk through where we are with advanced MEP systems. That EUI goes down, and in the range of the 32 to 58 is where we begin to see not just our building here, but overall in general, net zero energy capable and carbon capable buildings. And so our target is within that 32 to 58. And so we started by looking at this building system matrix with an ASHRAE baseline and our EDGE Somerville ambition, which is on the top, the baseline is on the bottom. And we looked at what are the things that we can do in a core and shell lab ready building to be able to get there. And of course, we're looking at the different types of mechanical systems. We'll talk about some of the decision making we can have. And of course, a high performing envelope getting all the way to where we'd start talking about the photovoltaics as well. So it's really looking at building systems, the envelope performance, because 50% of your energy comes and goes through the envelope. So we think a lot about the window wall ratio and maximizing daylight, but minimizing energy loss. And then the internal loads, which are already extreme from the EDGE perspective, that they want to have this as minimized as possible. Next slide, please. So we looked first at this really big ticket item, which is really what's driving that the mechanical system, what's driving that energy use intensity, which is the different mechanical systems. So we looked at three main options. On the left, a more traditional electric boiler with traditional chillers. It gives us an EUI 59 with 7 lead points from our model. We've done a full energy model at this stage, and we're driving from the model perspective. So this is evidence-led decision making. Option 2 is water source heat pumps and ground source heat pump. And that gets us to an energy use intensity of 48. So now we're actually in the target zone already with our option 2 with lead points, 11 lead points. If we go to option 3, which is really where we are, which is a modularized system of an air source heat pump and auxiliary water-cooled chiller, we are now looking at 45, energy use intensity of 45, so right in the sweet spot in the middle, with lead points of 13 points. That really helps us get to that lead platinum number, and the modularity of the chillers really helps us in being able to expand or contract the system as the tenant needs change as well. So there's a lot of thinking about how this building will perform over time and continue to be relevant for the multiple generations that we expect it to be there. So ultimately, from the performance-based decision-making, we can look at the two of those from the Boston baseline, modeling a baseline building. We actually modeled one specifically instead of taking kind of case studies at 96 kBTUs per square foot. And then our building is running at 45. And you can see the greenhouse gas emissions is significantly reduced accordingly. So less energy use intensity, less greenhouse gas emissions. And that's where we're getting to the idea where it's something that we feel that we can relevantly offset. And of course, following along with that is our path to LEED Platinum certifiable. So we're addressing the greenhouse gas issue with the choice of mechanical systems, the potential for electrification down the line, as well as the path to LEED Platinum certifiable. So where we are is we have a clean LEED at 80 points that we feel we are achieving, and then we have an additional 25 points in the maybe column. We are going to get some of those. So we feel we need 80 points to be platinum certifiable. So we are sitting very comfortably where we are right now to be able to achieve that metric. And you can see that those things are deployed around the building. In the cases, for example, where Victor talked about access to views and natural light in indoor gardens, those lead points are not hidden lead points. Those lead points are visible and baked into the building design.
So here, I'll take from here, Jason. So yeah, here's just a little very conceptual rendering that we did for some marketing, some marketing material here. But here's the vision, right? It's you could tell from how Victor's description and Jason's description how this is a performance-led design, and sustainability, wellness, technology come in from day one and they stay in throughout the process. And we believe if you do that, you're able to achieve the best building in town for a cost that makes sense. And at the end of the day, we achieve our overall mission of the world needs better buildings, and we could lead that conversation. And that's our presentation.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, it's Rebecca speaking. Can I have just a moment?
You can.
We need to take a brief recess if you can. There is an issue that Sarah needs to raise with you.
Okay, let's do this. Chair moves to take a 5-minute, 10-minute recess, seconded by Amelia. Roll call vote. Chair votes aye.
Dan votes aye.
Amelia votes aye.
Rob votes aye.
And Johanna, I think you need to vote again, please.
John votes aye.
Okay, the planning board is briefly in recess and we will reconvene in a few minutes. Thank you. Hold please. Hello, are people there? Bring us back in.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Let's, I think people are slowly filtering back in.
Thank you. One, two, three, four, five. We have the planning board back. Okay. Can we go back on the record, please? Okay. We are back on the record, and the chair has some unfortunate news. Due to an issue with the legal notice on the last case we just heard, it needs to be re-advertised and reheard. So our apologies to that applicant and for anyone that may have been in attendance to speak. We need to have a do-over on that one, apparently, because of the error in the legal notice that was sent out by folks that sent out the legal notice. So that stinks. Let me go forward with the hearing still in play, which is Middlesex Avenue. So I think at this point, did the applicant have anything more to add before the board asks some questions of the applicant and staff? Rebecca, the applicant might need to be unmuted.
Thank you.
There we go.
No, no more questions. Just thanks again for your time, and thank you for everybody in the public that's been hanging out with us for this few meetings here. So we hand it over to you, board. Thank you.
Okay. Members of the planning board, we are still working through part of the issue with the last issue with notice was presenting the platform on which this meeting was going to be held, and so we're still working out some of the kinks. So we will perfect it. Are there any questions of the board, of the applicant, or of staff at this point? I do have some, but I want to hear from you all first if you do. Go for it. You're muted.
Thank you. Sorry, that was muted by the organizer. We had the belt and suspenders. So to the applicants, we heard a few times you referenced commitments to diversity and inclusion in different ways, but I don't think we heard anything about how that actually works in this proposal with this building. Could you speak to that?
Yeah, in a variety of ways. I think consultants, the consultant level, which is, I guess you would call it, designers and consultants, the construction level with subcontractors and CM participation, marketing efforts, any opportunity that we believe is that can be achieved, we'll investigate. LBE.
I can be more clear with the question. I apologize. I mean, when this building is completed, when the vision for filling this space and for using this building, how does that contribute to diversity and inclusion, which you referenced particularly with regard to Summer Vision?
Sure. Well, one, I'd say one of our partners, Goss Cherilis, Somerville resident and born and raised there. He's heading up the diversity, inclusion, and LBE program for our team, and he has a great focus on this. When it comes to operations, I think it'll be similar to the approach when it comes to these current phases. It's reviewing all of different services that will be present in the building at that time, and making sure that we reach out throughout the community to identify vendors that can take on these roles. I would also say the building is open to the public as it comes to the open space. In that respect. I hope
Sorry,
that addresses your.
You broke up there at the end. Could you just say the last 20 seconds again?
Sure. So when it comes to contracts and vendors during the operations, we will make sure to facilitate and go out to cast a wide net to make sure it's inclusive of WMB and LBE firms. One, and then two, we contribute to the open space at grade that is open completely to the public, and we're able to welcome anyone in from the local community in that respect.
Do you have a sense of what the demographics of typical tenants for this type of building are, whether it's a sophisticated life sciences building or other buildings of this nature that you've built before?
When you say demographics, are you saying like age group and things like this?
Age, race, socioeconomic level?
I would say that we are gearing towards life science tenants, which is a host of different occupations that would fill up a space, whether it's researchers, corporate type of employees, administrative type of employees, all different age groups. I would say it's a rather wide net. I don't think we necessarily target certain age groups or demographics within that respect. I think it's more of the life science community as a whole. If that answers your question.
Is it fair to say that it's going to be a high socioeconomic class that's generally occupying your buildings, and that would be anticipated to occupy this building?
I would say in the life science community, it tends to be an educated workforce in that respect, that it's a rather complicated endeavor. But I think that doesn't mean that it only limits itself to one socioeconomic area. I think it'll be the full spectrum of socioeconomics, to be straightforward. Every company needs employees of all different types of backgrounds, education, and experience. So it's that's, I think, the best answer I could provide to you in that respect.
Okay, I think that answers my question for now. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I had a few questions. Is now a good time, or were you going to take it after?
I'm willing to take as many questions as folks think are appropriate at this point, and I'm willing to save them until after I close oral testimony.
Well, if I may ask a few, I wanted just to inquire, and maybe this is more for staff. I know this is the master plan special permit application, and if I'm not mistaken, after this, the applicant would be coming back with a site plan and design review application. Am I correct in that understanding?
Through you, Chair, this is Sarah Lewis. Yes, that is correct.
Okay, and the reason why I ask is because I had, a few questions about, in particular, the plan for the design of the open space and some of the pedestrian circulation areas. And, I'm happy to bring some of those comments or questions up now, or I'm happy to, if it's more appropriate, to do it as part of the site plan review. I don't know what's appropriate, so I'm asking for a little guidance.
Of course, this is new process for all of us. What we review in the master plan permit is generally the massing that is being proposed, the location of the open space, the orientation of the open space, but not getting into necessarily the details of the open space. This applicant has been, as they mentioned at the beginning, has been working very closely with different divisions within OSPCD, and has had a lot of input so far from public space and urban forestry, and will continue to do so. We anticipate that there will be 2 site plan approval processes, one for the building itself and then one for the open space. And both of those require design review and separate processes.
Great, that's very helpful to me because I'll just make just a few comments and then kind of wait for that process. But you know, I would just say that, as I think is probably obvious to everybody, given the location of the building and the open space, which to some extent is there. I mean, it's an existing open space. You know, there's a lot of sensitivity to its adjacency to the highway and the air quality concerns. And I have no doubt that that will be a very important part of the further discussions on open space design. You know, to be candid, this to me just never really feels like a great place for open space. So I'll be, you know, curious to see what unfolds in that regard. Certainly, I think there are opportunities for sustainable, you know, landscape design and potential uses. It's not huge, but it's not exactly a place that you know, people are going to be playing tennis at. So I just wanted to get that off my chest in case there are folks at home who you know, have that concern and share it and, you know, are following this. So
I think for you level, because I think that's a very, very important point, is the proximity of the site. And this is something that we considered from day one, is this site is more of a connection point. It's more of a node that introduces assembly to the rest of Somerville through the connector, Kensington connector. So that's how we viewed it, and that's how we're going to view that space. As in, we see people, you know, kind of coming through, maybe dropping off their bikes, continuing to the rest of assembly, stopping for a little bit to complete a phone call before they go into the building or before they go into the assembly area. This is not a place where we see loitering. This is not, we're not going to essentially bring in volleyball courts or, for example, something like that into the space. It's more, we're really trying to balance the public and private feel to the space, as in, yes, it is right next to a building that has tenants in it, and they will definitely be using the space. But also, this is a public space. So we want to make sure it's very inviting to the public. We're not welcoming loitering, but we want to make sure it's a place where you could stop, relax, stay for a little bit, and then move on with your day. I think that's our approach to this space overall, to answer that with, hopefully.
So this through you to the applicant, and sorry, Rob, I didn't mean to cut you off there. I just wanted to make it clear that issues with the line that we had muted a bunch of people again, as I think everybody noticed. And if other members of your team, Ryan, want to speak to any of these questions, just have them please raise their hand and using the app, and I will make sure to answer you.
And if I may, as long as I have the floor a little bit here, and I recognize it's a little harder to do virtually. The other comment I wanted to make was just really to express some degree of gratitude at the sensitivity, I think, that this, as best as I can tell, of your proposal around sustainability, indoor air quality. You know, I actually would love maybe to hear you comment just a little bit more on the steps that you're using to ensure high quality indoor air, because when this particular site was reviewed a couple of years ago, and there was another proposal put forward, I recall at the time, much of the public comment was on, you know, indoor air quality. And you know, that was a little different because I think that the proposal had residential uses, whereas this is 100% commercial. But again, for those people who might be home watching with that, perhaps the team could just comment briefly on kind of what the parameters are, what steps you're taking to ensure high quality air.
I'll hand this one to Jason, if you could address Jason.
Sure. So from a core and shell perspective, the high performance standard is a MERV 13 air filter after the DOAS and typically a particulate filter like a MERV 8 before. So that would be a high performing and in WELL standards. WELL standard really focuses on, it's not something we're doing, but it's something that we track because we believe the WELL standard really services the occupant in terms of its criteria and their indoor air quality. So the MERV 13 is the baseline for that. That's good. That is a high performing filtration that brings the air into the space. The second strategy of part of the core and shell is that a DOAS system, a dedicated outdoor air system, as the air is passing through and then it's leaving. So in other words, it's not being recycled within its own spaces. That's what we can control from the mechanical system side. The second part of that is then air infiltration. Positive air pressure in the building, which this allows us to do, keeps air from infiltrating into the building, and in fact keeps pressurizing out. And you need to do that in the Boston climate anyway. So you're always having a positive pressure in the building so that air is not moving in or leaking in through the building. And then we have a well-designed high-performance envelope. In other words, to maintain our energy quality, we also have to reduce the air leakage through the building. So we have standards that we're setting up for the quality of the envelope to perform, so that we will have positive pressure, we'll have less leaking in the envelope, we'll have air that passes through once and passes through a high-performance filter. That's what we can do as core and shell. And then we can recommend to tenants, but I'm going to tell you in life sciences, they're going to be way ahead of this. They're going to have filtration in their own spaces, which can easily move up to MERV 16, which is surgical suite level, or higher into HEPA filtration, which takes care of even finer particulates. That's done at a tenant by tenant level. We can help guide them, but the life sciences are going to drive that because they need that for their spaces.
Just to add a little bit to that, I would just add we have experience doing this, whether it's Edge Olympic, our headquarters in Amsterdam, that is a WELL Platinum building, or the Unilever headquarters in New Jersey, which is also one stop away from being a WELL Platinum building. These are things that we specialize in, we have experience in, and then we bring to every single project. So I think we have the best solutions when it comes to these, and we have a great problem-solving ability to bring to this project. And I think you heard from Jason, we have a great team. I mean, Jason's team is very specialized in this as well.
And maybe this is a point of clarification, but I thought I saw on one of your slides, it referred to MERV 16. And I don't know if that, I can't scroll up and down through the slides, but you know.
You're right. MERV 13 is core and shell. MERV 16 is a little more tenant specific. So my apologies on that. That's more of a typo in that respect. So MERV 13, core and shell, and then our tenants are able to, depending on their use, to go to the next level.
Okay, thank you. One other question I just wanted to ask you. You also showed in your presentation, I believe you referred to a green roof. Can you say a little bit more about what that is and what that will look like? And I think it even said publicly accessible green roof.
I'll let you tackle that one, and then I'll add anything that at the end. Victor may be muted.
Self-muted?
Yep, I'm here now. Thank you. Yeah, I think that what we're looking at are a series of outdoor terraces. Right now, I think they're at a level above the ground that they are probably tenant accessible and not public accessible. They're relatively small spaces. They're meant to provide a, sort of momentary outdoor space. They still have to be designed and trying to understand just how occupiable they are. Right now, they are an opportunity to bring some additional levels of sustainability to the building, but exactly how accessible and what level of occupation they have, we are still in the process of trying to figure that out.
I would add that the main green space, I think as you saw from a couple of the images, is really at that ground floor level. So yep. The 25% space, the 25% open space, that is exclusively just counting those percentages at the ground level.
Well, I would just invite the team to take another look then at their slides and just make sure that the descriptor and, I thought I saw a dot that said accessible green roof on the top of the building. So if that's not true, I just want to make sure that I know what we're talking about. But that's all the comments I have at the moment.
Okay. If anybody else has any questions of the applicant or of staff at this point, go ahead. But what I'd like to do is, I'm not sure how many folks who are listed as attendees are not affiliated with the applicant or the application. So what I'd like to do at this point, because I will have a couple of questions and comments after I hear from the audience, I do want to open it up. So if anybody has anything pressing that they want to ask it now. If not, wait a few minutes, please. So at this point, I'm going to open up this portion of the public hearing to anyone in the audience that wants to testify in support of this application. And the way we're doing this is there's a little raise hand button next to your name. So I'll ask you to click on that. And if we see you with a raised hand, we'll call on you and you can provide testimony. So I'm going to give you a second to do that, and then I will call a roll as I see it. I am not seeing anybody who has raised a hand in the attendees list who wants to provide testimony at this point. I'm going to give you.
Mr. Chair, is Rebecca?
Dory has.
Yes, I was just going to take note that Tori Antonino has raised her hand. I'm going to unmute her.
Wonderful. Hey, Tori, you're going to be unmuted, but if you could give your name and address for the audio record and provide your testimony, I would appreciate it.
Hi there, my name is Tori Antonino. I live at 65 Boston Street in Somerville, and thank you for taking public comment. This is a very interesting project. That it is located next to the highway and so close was a concern during the process and is still a concern, I think, for people in Somerville, for me in particular. There was talk of, I was hoping that the applicant would be amenable to working with the state delegation and the ward alderman to try to get some screening up along the highway. It's been in talks. It just hasn't yet happened. And any developers who would want to get behind that idea and support that would be really, it's really important. I would say if there is an opportunity to have a green roof with the solar voltaic, which actually pairs very nicely, it would be a wonderful opportunity to clean the air and increase the green space. I do appreciate the 25% and of that open space, but yeah, just trying to any place we have to put green space is important, and I always recommend planting native plants to restore the ecosystem, and I'll have more comment on that when the open space plan comes up for conversation. But thank you, and best of luck. Okay, bye guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tori. Scrolling through the attendee list again, and Jason has a hand raised. Jason, I just this is public testimony, so it's not a back and forth, but at the end of public testimony, we will obviously allow, and I will allow the applicant to respond to some of the issues that are raised during testimony, but that's not where we are now. If there's anyone that wants to provide testimony that has not yet already done so, please use the raise hand button. Okay. Seeing none, I'm going to close that portion of the public hearing. And and Jason still has his hand raised. So I don't know if there was a response to testimony that wanted to be made or not, but please go ahead.
Sorry, I slowly figured that out. I appreciate that. I would only offer that we are trying to put green on the building wherever feasible, and the other parts that we can, we're doing photovoltaic, and it's a balance. We're trying to find the exact balance, and we're looking at wherever we can do those surfaces, we're doing them, and completely agree about native plants whenever possible. So I think we're very much in line with that as our general strategy. It may be that because of the energy and the photovoltaic on the roof, we may be better off on the top of the building roof, maybe better off that we're seeing that the better place for green roofs is spread out around the building at the different terraces. That's where we are, but it's definitely no surfaces being overlooked to participate in one of those two things.
Great. Thank you very much. Do any of the other members of the planning board have any questions of the applicant right now? I've got a couple of things I want to say, but I'd like to hear from you all first as I try to do.
I do here. I recognize that this is a conversation about the massing, and so it reflects a level of detail that's looking forward. But at this time, as you think about the massing, how do you anticipate sort of breaking up this street wall along that 200 plus?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? You broke up a little bit.
How are you envisioning at this stage sort of breaking up the street wall to have it feel more manageable at a pedestrian level along sort of what appears in this massing to be a fairly long unbroken facade?
Victor, would you like to address that?
Yep, I can try to take that. I'm assuming you're talking about the Middlesex Ave facade, right? So that is going to be primarily a retail facade. So I think it's going to be a combination of seeing how we have not developed the details of it yet, but in the preliminary studies so far, I think it's a combination of seeing how the structure comes down to the ground, how exposed that is to start to give a rhythm to that facade. I think bringing in a series of canopies, other articulation to that exterior wall, because we're going to have to get into potentially signage for any of those retail vendors is going to have to go there. They're going to want identity, and I think just a combination of that and some of the other articulation of that facade to bring it down to a more human scaled pedestrian level. I truly don't have any of the details for you just because we haven't gotten there yet, but we are very aware of what is in the Somerville design guidelines. And how that needs to be brought to that level of discussion. So it is absolutely the intent to do that. We very much want the ground level of the building to feel approachable and to feel comfortable and to feel like it's for people.
Thank you. And then I just wanted to sort of commend the team on, I really, as the often voice of sustainable design on the board, I really appreciated the attention to detail that was given both sort of with sustainability and indoor air quality being guiding principles for the design of the building, and also what I thought was a very clear and well-organized presentation. So thank you for your attention to that and for your presentation on it. I had one other question for staff before proceeding, which is, I know that there is a new Assembly Square neighborhood plan that is slated for this year, and I'm wondering how the timing of that is anticipated to relate to the site plan approvals that will come through for this project, if we have any sense at this time.
This is Sarah Lewis. Unfortunately, given the recent COVID events, we don't know. We don't want to push a neighborhood plan forward that we want to make sure any of our neighborhood planning efforts are fully equitable and accessible, and our outreach is truly, sort of as widespread as we can make it. So I'm not entirely sure. This site, I will say, is sort of an island somewhat unto itself a little bit, with sort of streets on both sides of it, and so it's very limited in its engagement. We have talked to the applicant about Middlesex Avenue becoming more of a pedestrian-friendly, more sensitive than the high-speed throughway it tends to be now. And they've been working with the mobility team on what the cross-section of that might be like, which allows for a whole lot more open space and I'm going to call it breathing room on the Middlesex Avenue side of the building. So the part of the neighborhood plan that will very much affect this building is more of what happens on the marketplace side of Middlesex Avenue, and that is yet to be determined.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Jahan Habib. I have a question for the presentation team. Earlier, you mentioned that you anticipate that this building will be the gateway to Assembly Square. I'd like to understand what your visions and thoughts might be with respect to Assembly Square, and also have you given any consideration to the other adjacent neighborhoods, Ten Hills, East Somerville, and so forth?
What was the second part of the question?
Sure. The second part was whether you've given any attention or any consideration to the other adjacent neighborhoods, including Ten Hills, East Somerville.
Okay. So to address your first question, I think just with the proximity of the site, this site is naturally a gateway to the Assembly area, especially with the improvements of the Kensington connector coming on board in the next couple of years. So right when you come under that underpass, you're really going to come up to the site. And that's why we also think going back to that balanced green and open space, we think that's going to be critical. We think the ability to connect pedestrians and bikes is critical. Safety is critical. All of those things are very, very important in that respect. In general, we think the Assembly area is very special. Yet the public transportation, the tight-knit community, we think Assembly and that whole entire area has many amenities at the retail level and offers a lot of many different amenities to the people that live there and also people that work there. So we really think Assembly is very, very special and will be very successful going into the future. In regards to the other neighborhoods, we haven't as much focused on those just because this is really kind of like our baby with that respect, right? We've really been putting a lot of attention to this market and sub-market specifically. But I'd say in general, we think Somerville is a great town, a great place to be, and has a very promising future.
Thank you. And Mr. Chair, if I may ask just one additional question. So you also mentioned that of course during the past 3 months, there's been a lot of shifts and changes with respect to COVID and the unfortunate pandemic. But I just wanted to get a better sense of your thought process. Is it still evolving? What considerations have you given? I know you alluded to some of the items related to sustainability, but I'm just trying to see whether this plays a role in your future plans. Granted, this is a immediate current consideration. However, I just wanted to see what's shaping your thinking, if there are any adjustments or any considerations with respect to the latest COVID matter.
Sure. I mean, I think the number one thing we all think about is health and air quality, and really making sure that's a focus. Which, fortunately for us, we have experience in that. This was our main focus in any case before this whole thing happened, but I think it really highlights it even more. And throughout the whole entire design process and throughout us marketing it to the tenants, we will make sure to highlight these attributes of the building, but also when it comes to the operations of the building, we like to incorporate display technology throughout our public spaces and also in tenant spaces. So people that are in the building, living and breathing in the building on a daily basis, are able to see the quality of the air, the amount of CO2 in the air, things like this that we think once you bring awareness to these things in the building, people really appreciate it. And they also appreciate their companies a lot more because they now understand that their employers care about these things. So we really try to make this a part of the process now and a part of the operation later.
Great. Thank you for the response, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
There you go. Sam, go for it.
Thank you. And I want to echo particularly what Rob and Amelia said about how this proposal is admirable in a lot of ways. I think it was done, the presentation was done very well. The sustainability efforts are certainly admirable. I do want to go back though to questions about diversity and inclusion as you phrased it, and how Somerville has talked consistently about trying to give attention to these sorts of issues. And frankly, I think that sustainability issues are absolutely necessary, but they're not in of themselves sufficient. So I think maybe the frame for this should be something akin to affordable housing. Somerville has a 20% affordable housing requirement in the recognition that there need to be certain things that are done above general benefits, that general community benefits are great, but they're not sufficient to achieve our goals with regard to diversity and creating an inclusive community. So I guess my question for the applicants is, what are you doing above general community benefits? What are you doing to give particular attention to communities of color and lower socioeconomic communities?
So I could have addressed this better when you asked it the first time, so I'll try to do a little better job this time. So one thing that we're bringing over from our other project, 401 Congress Street, was we're identifying all the different, I guess, categories of, back to the design consultants, the CM, the subcontractors, the trade workers, operations. And we do a goal setting for diversity and inclusion at the start. And we say, what is the marketplace standard and what can we achieve on this site? And we say, let's do better than what everyone else is doing. Let's set our goals high and let's identify the pathway to achieve that. So that is our approach that we're going to be doing for Somerville. And I also say, when it comes to diversity, yes, sometimes it is about, when you're talking WMBEs and MBEs and LBEs, it's about, they're talking about the owners of the company. We also think it's tremendously important to make attention to the underemployed in the area and maybe the underskilled, and create programs that bring employment opportunities to these individuals as well and help them build skill sets. And we really look at our CMs when it comes to that as well, because they really have great programs that facilitate this, and they're able to bring in people from the community, train them, have them be a part of the project, and give them a skill set for future work as well.
Do you have any specific commitments in that regard for this project? For underemployed or lesser, for underemployed communities?
I think a good example is pre-apprentice programs. So you're essentially, helping them identify something they'd be interested in, bringing them in with the CM and working with the CM with their current programs and moving forward from there. We promise our best efforts in this respect. We haven't picked a CM yet, for example, so we haven't really been able to talk in detail about that program yet. Once we have a CM on board, we will go into detail of what that plan would be, and we welcome you to be a part of that conversation as well.
Okay, and if I may, Mr. Chair, the related question, in your proposal, you identify 13 different neighborhoods or census identified neighborhoods in the area of this proposal. 8 of those 13 are at least 35% minority or people of color in the population. 2 of the significant areas, these are not of the 13 areas, but 2 significant areas nearby are less than 65% of the median income. So I guess my greatest concern with a large life science building coming to be a focal point of this community is that it would naturally lead to gentrification. So I wonder if there are any concerns that you have regarding gentrification, or if you have any plans to try to be proactive on that front.
Not any particular concerns. I think it's, being in real estate, it's something that we're always very aware of, and we always want to be attuned to the conversation in the local marketplace, Somerville, for example. We try to address it in the ways we can as individual projects. Sometimes these are larger conversations in that respect, with maybe a city level or a regional level conversation as well. So we'll do what we can within our own powers of our project, and be a part of the conversation. We would say that, we do think the project will deliver, substantial income to the city as well through tax. And we think we can help improve quality of life, create jobs for the city in that respect, and hope to contribute in that way as well.
That's all I have, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Guys, I want to talk broadly about this project. I want to note for the applicant and for members of the board who I'm sure have seen the emails from the staff that there is a lengthy, I'm going back into my own other window here. There are a number of questions and concerns that were raised by the Office of Sustainability and Environment by the city that I think are still kind of unresolved in this application and the presentation. Is that right? Either Sarah or Rebecca, that there are a number of issues that have been raised by specific city departments that need to be addressed.
Yes, Mr. Chair, there are, the one that you see attached currently is the memo from the Office of Sustainability and Environment. We are still expecting additional comments from Public Space and Urban Forestry, and I just today received some comments from engineering that I will be sharing with the applicant tomorrow morning, and will be included in the updated staff memo for your next meeting.
Right, thank you. So I just want to clarify for everybody that this application is not yet ready for a vote by this board. What we've done, I think, is kind of laid a framework for the applicant to come back with responses to some of our questions and concerns, as well as those that have been raised already by the city in its official memorandum. Now, Sarah, you're still on the line, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Now, this is not a new site that this board has taken a look at in recent years. Is that correct?
That is correct. It was previously referred to as 845 McGrath Highway and 74 Middlesex Avenue.
Right. And if I remember correctly, and for the applicant who may or may not be aware, and for members of the board who may or may not have been aware, this application was originally a dual tower plan that was going to be a hotel and a residential building. And we went through a number of different meetings within our board, and the applicant had a number of, the applicant of that particular project had a number of community meetings outside of this board to address a lot of the issues that honestly a lot of you raised that still kind of remain concerning. One of which, Rob, is the use of the open space. The other applicant also had open space that was right next to the highway, and we all thought that was ridiculous. And we all acknowledged at that point that the open space was not actually going to be used as open space. It was more of a transiting plaza between one tower to the next type of thing. So, I mean, the concern for having actual usable open space right next to Route 93 is still an issue for this one. What the applicant in the previous iteration of this site said repeatedly, and I wish George was on the line because I really want to hit him. No, we really can't have commercial on this site. We can't do it. It's too small. You can't have the floor plan. You can't have lab. You can't have this. And we begged him, please, 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 we need the revenue. We need commercial space. We need lab space. We need, an excellent development that's not just housing next to the highway. couldn't be done, and now it's done. And this is precisely what we had asked for, I don't know, about a year and a half ago, was a project of this type and of this caliber. Now, we're not quite there yet. We're not ready for a vote. This is what we've been begging and what we were told was not feasible the last time this went around. And when the neighborhood got involved, this is what they wanted as well. This is what the ward alderman wanted as well, if it could possibly be done. I'd love to see the ward alderman get on board for this one too. I haven't spoken with him yet, and I haven't seen any comments from Matty yet, but I hope it's coming. This is to me, a great step in the right direction. We need some more clarity on things, and to address some of the issues that Sam raised. Did somebody on the development team say that you have Gaz Cherelis on your team?
That's right.
So I'm sure you all know Gaz is the American dream. Gaz is also an old family friend of ours. He's a high school and college classmate of my brother. But if you've got Gaz on your team, you guys are moving in the right direction. You'll do a great job in addressing, hopefully, a lot of the issues that Sam has raised in attracting and addressing issues related to communities of color, communities of lower socioeconomic background.
Yes.
And he's fantastic. He's what everybody should aspire to. So I hope that as forward, some of the concerns that have been raised by members of this board, they seem to at least be on a platform that could move forward in a positive way from what you've proposed. I don't know if you would addressed everything we've looked at yet. I'd like to see where you come down with some of the more discrete questions that we've got with sustainability that Rob's raised, that Sam's raised, and that John has raised that haven't been finalized yet. But we're in a place, I think, where this is going to move forward in a positive direction, so long as the neighborhood is on board, the alderman is on board, and you guys can get us answers to some of the questions that the city has asked and that we can ask, that we have asked at the next time that we convene. So one other thing, I'm a little surprised that, let me check the attendee list. Where is Wiggs Amel?
Mr. Chairman.
I'm dead serious. In the last time that this site came to public testimony, Wig was instrumental in getting at least the air quality in residential buildings to a place that was going to be, at the time, pretty forward thinking. And I can't compel the man to testify, but I'd love to hear his thoughts on the MERV 16 system, because this is certainly not, my level and my expertise. But we heard a lot of testimony from a lot of people who do specialize in these fields in the last project, and this is kind of what they were talking about. And this stuff.
Mr. Chair, if I may, this is Sarah Lewis.
Yeah.
So this process under the master plan special permit, the first neighborhood meeting held by this team, and they were only obligated to do one, was actually done in person before any of the shutdown occurred. And the Mystic View Task Force were definitely all there. And had some tough questions, and there was some discussion, but they were generally, Wiggs said very similar to you, in as much as this is the project that we wanted when we first looked at this site. And the team also held a second meeting at the request of Mystic View's task force to determine if there had been any changes through the process thus far. And that meeting was held virtually, and actually it had it had 44 attendees virtually, which were actually a larger number of attendees than came out to the meeting in person, which was sort of an interesting observation from us. But there have been, other than questions, there have been very few negative comments that I have heard to date on the project. But as I said,
Sarah, you're breaking up.
Okay, sorry about that. I said then further public testimony and written testimony before we finalize the staff memo.
Right. I mean, we're obviously in the master plan phase of it, so we're not getting too deep into the weeds on the project itself. But I think we are in a position where this board will be well served by having some of the questions that have been raised addressed next time we have a presentation. Does anybody else on the planning board have any questions of staff or of the applicant?
Mr. Chair, I was wondering, and I wanted to throw out my questions to be very clear. They don't have to be answered tonight, but maybe the next time the applicant comes, they could be prepared to answer them. So, you know, I don't want to speak for Mr. Zamor, but the previous project had a two-stage filtration HVAC requirement. The primary filter was a MERV 16, and the individual residences, of course, had a minimum MERV 13 filter. And I understand that you're proposing that the whole building filter be MERV 13. So you don't have to answer it now, but I guess my question is, you know, what's the appropriateness of MERV 13 versus MERV 16? I'm not an expert, but I would love to get an answer. And I understand folks have been chatting on this, so maybe next time we can circle back. The other question I had, oh, am I talking too fast?
No, I just, if we could answer it tonight, I would love to get you an answer.
Okay, great. If you know it, great.
Hey, Jason.
Hi, I think you can hear me, right? The MERV 16 is for surgical suites. It's for surgical suites. It's at a level, and you have to understand that we don't think that that's a bad thing. However, and there will be a two-stage filter here. There's a particulate filter that goes before the incoming air DOAS, and then one that's after, which is the 13, and that is a very high standard. MERV 16 is surgical suites at the tenant level. So in a core and shell building, the tenants have to handle how, because they may not want 16, they may want something higher. They may want HEPA, they may want UV. And what we've done is build a flexible platform to allow that to happen, and we can support that with the building infrastructure. Our job as the core and shell designers have to be flexible to allow them to have that choice. We can provide them what we believe to be the highest standard, which is the well standard of that MERV 13 for commercial buildings, and it's a published chart of what these systems are for. But the tenant level is where that level goes, just like you would want that same level. So in other words, if it was a residential building, the incoming air for any residential building is going to be lower MERV than where you get to the space, which would be higher. So it goes from lower to higher, right? So in this case, we go from, say, an 8 for major particulates, right, to keep the system clean, and then go to 13 to clean all major things that would have a very high quality of air going through. At the next level happens again when the tenant fits out their space. It's a tenant by tenant requirement.
Thank you. And my last question, and then I know Amelia wants to get in, is for the next meeting, if we could get a list of all the linkage fees and how much is estimated, and maybe it was already in there and I missed it, but I believe there's a linkage to the Workforce and Job Development Fund, which may or may not speak to some of the concerns that Sam raised, but I am not an expert on all the linkage fees, and I would love to see the details.
We do have that. We'll save that for next time.
Okay.
I just wanted to share a comment with my fellow board members, and it may be something that the applicant wishes to respond to, but I'm not sure I have the framing of it as a question. With respect to the use of the outdoor space and the green space, I do think it's important to remember that there's a high demand for green space that is usable for purposes other than recreation. So while recreational space is in high demand and there may be no design that can locate successful recreational space next to a highway, having that open green space is still important for stormwater recharge and stormwater management, urban heat island habitat. So there are a variety of other functions that green space at the ground level is serving, even if it's not suitable for volleyball. That said, I am not fully sure how the existing green space is being accounted for as contributing to the open space requirement for this application. I would love to understand from the city side, perhaps at a later point, what responsibilities are being taken on by the developer to allow for the fact that 2/3 of the open space requirement is currently being met by existing green space that is being given up by the city and relocated. That's just not completely clear to me. Thank you.
I could address the stormwater and heat island question. So we look at that open space, and we're actually trying to maximize the number of lead points that we're able to achieve for both stormwater and heat island effect within that space. So we are very aware and focused on those efforts there, and looking to have it be very performance-based in respect to your question in the best way possible. In regards to your open space question, the 25% open space I referenced is strictly on our plot. So it's not including the open space that's currently the green space past the south of Kensington Avenue Street. And I think that might be the question you're asking.
Yes, sorry, I think that was unclear in the way that it was worded in one of the documents. So thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, so open space on site, the civic space includes Kensington Avenue itself. Parts of that.
Thank you.
Sorry, I need to unmute myself. So we've got a little work to do. Does anybody have anything else right now for the applicant or the staff before we ask them to return to us in a few weeks? Okay. To the applicant, thank you very much for your presentation and for your answers to our questions and to some of the concerns that we've had that are not yet, I think, fully resolved. But hopefully we'll get to a resolution in the next meeting or two. So thank you very much. We will let you go. We have nothing formally else on the agenda. I want to raise two things briefly for other business. One is for next time, because we have a crop of three new folks and the departure of 3 old ones. I think it is high time for us to have elections at next point among our members for a vice chair and a clerk. So think about if you want to take part in those and be involved in that capacity. I don't know if they're in attendance anymore. I did see 1 or 2 of them. Let me take a quick look through the attendee list. I don't see him. Jerry Amaral was here for a bit. Jerry had been an alternate on this board for a number of years. I don't know exactly when, 2012-ish, maybe a little bit thereafter. Obviously, we've got three new folks, and Amelia, you've been on for about a year. Yeah. So this board is now kind of newly constituted. It's weird kind of being now the longest serving member. I was, like I said, I joined in 08, about 6 months out of law school. And I learned a lot from the folks that were on the board that were now replaced by you three. And I just want to take a quick minute just to recognize their lengthy service to the city of Somerville. I'll just speak real quickly about each of them. Jerry's a small business owner in the city and has been involved in a number of different roles in his life. I'm pretty sure he's a lifelong guy and always kind of brought to me a perspective that I didn't have as a business owner and a member of that community. Joe Favallaro has been involved in local government and state government for, I'm pretty sure, his entire career. And he, I think, was on the planning board for 25 years when everything was said and done. He also served on the board of aldermen. He's worked in state government, and he had a huge impact on me in the way that I view applicants and folks in the community who don't always see eye to eye with me. Joe never punches, and neither do I. But it was always nice for him to be able to bring his perspective as someone who had been involved for as long as he had on the board. And Dot Gay, for those of you who know Dot and know her contribution to the city and to the state, she had been involved in local government as, the 80s, the 90s. She was on the school committee. She was obviously the mayor for a number of years, the first, female mayor of the city. She was on the governor's council for a number of terms. She was the nominee for lieutenant governor. And she's a kind of in our political community, our governmental family. So it's sad to see them kind of move into the next phase of their lives and see all of you join us. I just want to take a minute to recognize their contributions to this board and to this city. If a lot of what they had done in the last several decades weren't done, if they hadn't created the building blocks for where we are now, we wouldn't be where we are now. We wouldn't be the city that we are. We wouldn't have the planning that we have, the zoning that we have, the forward-thinking nature of government that we have. So I just want to take a brief minute with my colleagues to acknowledge their contributions to while you guys move on and make a new constitution of a great board. So I just wanted to formally thank them in kind of this that was not addressed. And I always ask if anybody has anything else for the good of the meeting before we move to adjourn. Thank you very much. Well, thank you all very much for a great meeting. It's weird to do this virtually. I can't wait to actually shake all your hands, if we can actually shake hands again at some point. So at this point, the chair is going to move to adjourn this meeting of the Somerville Planning Board, seconded by Amelia, because I'm sure we all want to eat. So roll call vote. Chair votes aye.
Amelia votes aye.
Sam votes aye.
Rob votes aye.
Jahan votes aye.
Thank you all very much. It is unanimous, and I will see you all, maybe not virtually, depending on when the next meeting, the 21st?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
What?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, this is Rebecca. Yes, the next meeting will be on the 21st and is planned to be virtual.
Okay, well, I will see you all virtually then.
Don't we have a joint session before that?
We have one on the 19th. But nothing for our own special business.
Thank you to Sarah and Rebecca, and thank you, Mike.
Thanks all.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.